most trustless name in news.
The reasonings behind why people invest in altcoins is important. In a bull run, almost everything pumps, so you could theoretically throw darts at a dartboard and pick altcoins that see substantial gains. But solid reasoning, a good thesis, can help a person gain more than just substantial. I'm talking about a difference between hundreds of thousands to millions in gains. Well, we have a new thesis that makes a lot of sense. So are you ready for how we will move this bull run? We'll find out our groove in about 10 minutes because it's time for Chico Crypto. So how am I going to navigate the crypto and altcoin market this bull run? Well, here in December, I'm going to be making a certain move very soon. I'm going to be buying up a bunch of Ethereum. Why? Well, I predicted this during the Bitcoin ETF hype, that Ethereum would be coming shortly after. A month and a half ago, on November 1st, I put out this video. BlackRock will shock crypto, and Ethereum ETF is coming soon, in which I gave my reasoning and thesis for a BlackRock Ethereum ETF being announced before year-end 2024. Well, my sixth sense for crypto was tingling because just over 2 weeks later, on November 16th, my prediction became officially true. BlackRock filed for an Ethereum Spot ETF. So why am I going to be buying Ethereum this December? Won't the ETH ETF come much later than the Bitcoin ETF that many people expect to get approved in early January? Well, personally, I think there is a big chance Ethereum gets approved right alongside Bitcoin in January. If you haven't been paying attention, the Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock and others have been going through some big changes. Last week, BlackRock and Bitwise made changes to their ETFs, and the changes range from themes like security risk disclosures to the structure of the trust. In total, 21 notable amendments were made. James Seffart, ETF analyst for Bloomberg, who has been following the ETFs like a hawk, said this about the changes. What does this mean? Without having read them, it just means that the wheel is still turning. Both the SEC and these issuers are working hard to iron things out. These filings are likely the result of many conversations and a lot of man hours on and between both sides. BlackRock and others are meeting with the SEC and getting things ironed out, aka the Bitcoin ETF is likely getting prepared to be approved. What does this have to do with Ethereum? Well, if BlackRock is figuring out what they need to do for their Bitcoin ETF from the SEC, they will then apply this directly to the Ethereum ETF. Ethereum ETF applications will be in the shape they need to be for an automatic approval from the SEC. Instead of going through delay after delay like the Bitcoin ETF, they will likely be approved on the first approval deadline. And if you didn't know, BlackRock's iShares Ethereum Trust ETF's first deadline approval date comes in January 25th. Shortly after their Bitcoin approval deadline, which is January 15th. Bitcoin's likely approval is known in the markets. People have been front-running this news since October, when insiders probably got the news that the approval was coming. A random big 5K pump from 30K to 35K tells me this is likely the case. I wouldn't doubt Ethereum is going to have a pop like this soon. I'm talking about it going from its current level of around 2,175 all the way up to 3,000 in one single candle. Because once insiders get the news that the road to the Ethereum ETF is clear, they will switch their front running to ETH. But let me say, if this does happen, Ethereum won't be the only altcoin that pumps. Altcoins highly connected to Ethereum in terms of its functionality and future functionality will also pump. There is already data saying that this will be the case. If you didn't know, last week Ethereum pumped when Bitcoin was staying flat. As we can see, from December 5th to the 10th, BTC was flat. flat, actually going down a bit on the 7th. While pulling out the Ethereum price chart during that time, Ethereum had a bigger than normal pump, going from 2,230 to nearly 2,400, an 8% jump. Well, guess which altcoins followed Ethereum and then pumped even more? Ethereum Layer 2s. As we can see, the optimistic rollup, Layer 2, optimism pumped from $1.73 to $2.24 on the 7th, the day Ethereum started pumping. This was a gain of 30%. Then we can see right here, the roll-up Layer 2 Arbitrum also had a massive pump on that day, going from $1.05 to $1.19, a gain of 13%. Another example? Well, the Ethereum Layer 2, basically the ETH 2 testnet that runs on POS-DAO Gnosis chain, also saw a massive pump that day. It went from $191 to $240, a big old gain of 26%. These three tokens and their Layer 2s are critical infrastructure pieces of Ethereum. Both Arbitrum and Optimism are the roll-up technologies that are going to allow Ethereum to scale far into the future. And Gnosis is the Kusama of Ethereum. It's a playground and testnet that allows developers to test their products before moving them onto Ethereum. Gnosis will be the place sharding is executed first. It's a play where PBS, Proposer Builder setup for Ethereum, will be tested first. When Ethereum gets its ETF greenlighted, in my opinion, these three coins will moon and moon hard, as they are technical pieces of Ethereum's future development. Although this isn't the only reason I see a few of these coins doing extremely well into next year. You just have to look at the stats. For example, Optimism, as we can see, its rank is number 40 on CoinGecko with just under a $2 billion market cap. Scrolling up, we can see that Layer 1s and Layer 0s, Solana and Cardano, have much higher market caps, 29 billion and 21 billion. Cardano is 10.5 times bigger in cap, and Solana is 14.5 times bigger. Now, checking out the TVL of these chains, you get an idea that things are pretty out of whack. Optimism currently has $848 million locked up in the chain across the various protocols. Although you can consider their TVL even higher because of Base Chain that is using their tech optimistic rollups to scale Base Chain. And Optimism and Base have shared governance. And also 15% of profits from Base are going to the OP Collective. Well, as we can see, Base has $372 million locked up, which means Optimism has basically a 1.22 billion TVL. Checking out Solana, they're lower than OP with 881 million, and then Cardano is much lower with only 415 million. Then things get even more apparent with Arbitrum. Arbitrum's market cap is just 1.45 billion, compared with Solana's 29 billion and Cardano's 21 billion, meaning Solana is 20 times bigger and Cardano is 14.5 times bigger. Because of this discrepancy in market caps, you would think Arbitrum has a lower TVL than Optimism, right? But that isn't true. Arbitrum's TVL is 2.29 billion. Arbitrum TVL is 2.6 times bigger than Solana and 5.5 times bigger than Cardano. But what about Gnosis chain? Well, Gnosis has the lowest TVL and market cap out of all the chains mentioned, but I see a big opportunity with GNO. Gnosis has a TVL of just 246 million. And as we can see, has a market cap of just 575 million. But then going back to the TVL of Gnosis, we can see since October, the TVL has been exploding, going from just 75 million to its current level, a 228% increase in just a couple of months. One of the reasons for this is SDAI, or Savings DAI, being launched on the Gnosis chain. This happened in October, and as we can see, it has already grown to over 61 million. On Gnosis, SDAI earns a maker's saving rate, an APY of over 5% just for holding it, and has quickly become composable and being freely used across different DeFi protocols as collateral for lending, borrowing, and LPs. In my opinion, this is just the beginning for Gnosis, and it's going to quickly move up in the rankings, making its way to the top 50. Also, Optimism and Arbitrum will likely become top 20 cryptos sometime in 2024. Cheers, viewers. I'll see you next time.
The most trustless name in news.